are listening to Stories from Palestine podcast, a podcast recorded in Palestine and about Palestine. My name is Crystal. I am originally from the Netherlands and I am married to a Palestinian. We live in Beit Safafa between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, and we run Singer Cafe and Al Jisr Bar in Beit Sahur. Before moving to Palestine in 2013, I worked as a teacher and tour guide in the Netherlands. I have a degree in history and in tour guiding and many years of tour guiding experience. Due to the COVID pandemic, tourism in Palestine came to a complete halt, and that's why I started Stories from Palestine podcast in August 2020. This is the second year of the podcast, with every week on Monday a new episode about the history and heritage of Palestine, as well as the reality of life today. I hope you will enjoy today's episode. Today's episode is about Handmade Palestine. Handmade Palestine is an initiative that supports over 25 artisans and cooperatives that produce local handicrafts in Palestine. Handmade Palestine is launching a crowdfunding campaign and an online bazaar at the end of this week on Saturday, the 23rd of October. My friend Morgan told me about it, and then she asked me if I'd be interested to do a podcast series about the artisans, and I became very enthusiastic because they all have very interesting stories to tell. So in order to support their crowdfunding campaign and to get more people to visit the online bazaar and to buy all their holiday gifts from their website, Stories from Palestine will have a series in the coming weeks of podcast episodes that highlight some of the artisans and their work. And in this week's episode, you can hear an introduction on Handmade Palestine with Majdi and Morgan explaining, full of enthusiasm, about the work that Handmade Palestine is doing. I'm sitting here with Majdi on the roof of Singer Cafe, and Majdi came to Bethlehem to visit some of the projects that Handmade Palestine is supporting. And we are sitting here, and I just want you to explain to us, as the project coordinator of Handmade Palestine, what is Handmade Palestine? What do you guys do?
So basically, first it was Morgan and Saleh. They saw that there were not much space in Ramallah where you can go and play with your children in nature, and very little spaces where people are planting trees. That's when they bought 12 dunams of land to the west of Ramallah on the last mountain called Bahr al-Uqda. It's now an Area C in an attempt to build an arboretum or a botanic garden. Later, a few years later, they tried to get funds, but funds were not easy, so they thought that why not sell the olive oil, sell the honey from the beehives. And we as Palestinian, we always have relied and used the sources that Earth has given us to live, to make a living. In Bethlehem, olive wood has been very popular for hundreds of years, olive wood carving, etc. So by the time Morgan started getting to know more artisans from the West Bank, Gaza, Jerusalem, and the community, the network started growing. And that's when Handmade Palestine was born as a website. It actually, before that, in 2016-15, it started as like a few rows at the cafe in Ramallah, selling a few items, but then it expanded to be what is now handmadepalestine.com, working with 25 women cooperatives from different areas, mainly focusing on women's societies in marginalized communities and refugee camps in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. And today I'm here in Bethlehem to shoot videos with some of the artisans. We visited Ma'an al-Hayat, a center for people with intellectual disabilities, a space where they can come learn, play, and also do handicraft work with their friends. It's such a beautiful space. it gives me so much hope that even like those people that the society sometimes finds it hard to accept or to understand, that they have this space to not only live and grow, but also to be a vital part of society, to produce, to be part of the economic and the social activity.
So if people are interested in seeing which artisanal work Handmade Palestine supports and sells, they can go to the website. And then what? Like if they want to buy something, and both for local people here and for people abroad, how does it work?
Basically, you can go to handmadepalestine.com, and we have an e-commerce store where you can shop from 25 plus artisans and women's societies. And if you're in Ramallah and you would like to visit our display at La Vie Cafe, it's nearby Arafat Square.
Can you mention some of the products that are available?
Yeah, sure. So Handmade Palestine works with basically we focus on products relating to the community, relating to the cultural and historical, and obviously, and you have no way out, the political reality. Of course, you have, for instance, embroidery. We cannot ignore that embroidery is everywhere in the world, but it became part of our story as Palestinian because women in refugee camps, for instance, when they were not allowed to wave the Palestinian flag, they stitched that on their dress to express their political views, etc., or to just prove existence, So embroidery is a very important part of the struggle, and it makes me very happy to see women or even men who wear embroidery to express their identity. And not only embroidery, but as I said, olive wood. All of the Levant is famous for for that, not only Palestine, but still we are very attached to the olive tree because it resembles the steadfastness, the resilience that we have. And for more than 76 years, which nation could have done that? And we're still doing it, and we live by it. We live from the olive oil, and what else can I say? So all of these things that come together just like cross-stitch, these very bits of fabric that eventually create this bigger image and artwork. We also feature some artists, traditional modern art, leather from Hebron, embroidery, of course, I said, from Gaza. We work with 2 women's societies from Gaza who work with women in refugee camps in Gaza. There are more than 250 women embroiderers who benefit from this project in Gaza. Ceramics from Nisf Jbeil to the north of Nablus. There's this very beautiful community where they do hand-painted, handmade, handcrafted ceramics. So everything that has anything to do with our cultural history, we are about reviving that and supporting the artisans and the makers behind that story. And eventually, when you shop or when you support these artisans, you are also giving gifts that keep giving, because the proceeds from the sales go to planting trees in Ramallah, and not only in the land that Saleh and Morgan started, but also we are trying to build a community of volunteers who are willing to make it green everywhere they go.
So you are not only supporting the artisans themselves, you're also supporting a project to make Palestine greener.
Yes, so I've known Saleh and Morgan since 10 years now, and they are crazy about the environment, about trees around their house, plants, trees, animals, whatever. And Saleh is such a tree lover, he's always teaching me about trees. And that's the message here, that, Judur's message is strictly environmental. The city is taking over the green spaces, and buildings are making our environment warmer and warmer. They're warming Earth, and that's killing everyone on Earth. And it's also, it's always political in a way, because also the occupation plants, trees that are not native, that also affect the soil on which we live. Also with their industrial and military manufacturing, they also are very harmful for the environment, for the soil. If we do not have healthy soil to plant our food and to plant our trees, then we cannot have food that's healthy, and then it's a lose-lose situation. So yeah, planting trees. The right time to plant a tree is, 30 years ago. Let's start today.
Yeah, there is this beautiful saying that he who plants a tree now doesn't plant it for himself to sit under its shade, but it's for the next generation. Something like that, yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. Well, I'll post a link in the show notes for people to go and see the website and order now for Christmas, for all the holidays that are coming. Does it take a lot of time to ship? What's the experience of shipping?
In the States, it takes 5 to 7 days. For international orders in Europe and other countries, it takes up to 3 weeks. And we also invite you to stay anticipated. We are launching our first crowdfunding campaign by the end of October to support the women artisans that we work with and to expand our reach to more audiences so we can keep supporting the artisans and bring you all the best of handicrafts from Palestine.
Yes, so support the crowdfunder. Keep an eye on that. I will also post about that on the social media of Stories from Palestine. And I see, Majdi, that your breakfast has arrived. So yeah, enjoy it. You deserve it. The initiator and big motor behind Handmade Palestine is, of course, Morgan, and Majdi already mentioned Morgan and told a little bit about her. And thank you, Morgan, for taking the time to be with us today on the podcast. Please introduce yourself before we start talking more about Handmade Palestine. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Morgan. I started Handmade Palestine actually as part of a larger project called Mashar Jadur, which is an arboretum on the outskirts of Ramallah. My husband and I founded it as a nonprofit with the intention to create a green space for Palestinian families to come and learn about conservation as well as environmental heritage in Palestine. I'm originally from the United States. I was born and raised in California. I ended up coming here to Palestine to visit a friend, actually, a college friend, who was teaching for a year and was really unhappy. And his mom actually asked me to visit him. At the time, I had just graduated college and I was in Europe backpacking. And I thought, oh, cool, Palestine. That sounds like a new experience. Sure, why not? I asked him if he could get me a host family so that I could have a more cultural experience. And he struggled to find a family that would take a stranger to live with them until he found Fidat Musa. And she opened her home and her heart to me. After 3 months, I went to Europe to meet a friend and travel some more. And when I came back to Palestine, it felt like coming home. And I knew I would keep coming back from then on. After a few years of coming for the summers, I decided this is where I wanted to live forever. I felt that there were cultural values here that America had long lost, and that I could be involved in ways that felt meaningful. I could make change here in really positive ways. So I got a job teaching at Birzeit University. I founded the Palestine Writing Workshop. I worked with the Palestine Festival of Literature. And I felt like I was contributing. So that was really great for me. When I met Saleh in 2009, I was actually looking for a kind of cultural venue to do spoken word poetry events. And he had just opened his cafe. And we hit it off. And the rest is history. I got married a few years later. I have 2 little kids. And I turned Palestine Writing Workshop over to the amazing Maya Abu al-Hayat. And I run the cafe with my husband, Lavi, in the center of Ramallah. I'm actually the chef. We have a rooftop organic garden that's really important to us. And we have this kind of side baby that is Mashar Jadur, a project that we both have our hearts in, but don't have much time for. So we do what we can there. We do activities, family activities, teaching kids. We work with Baladiyat Ramallah sometimes to do activities as well. We do workshops on the land around beekeeping, planting trees, natural environmental knowledge. We've published a few things, pocket guide to wildflowers, that kind of stuff. We've planted hundreds of trees, not just at the Arboretum, but on the mountains trying to green Palestine. We found that work really financially unsustainable. We funded most of it from the cafe. It got exhausting. When we looked into funding, we found that environment is really not a priority in Palestine. So we decided to try to become sustainable. We thought, okay, we have the restaurant. Let's open up a little display in the corner and we could sell handicrafts. We're going to support artisans, sustaining their livelihoods from their crafts, and any of the profit we can use to take care of trees. I mean, you don't just buy a tree and plant a tree. You have to buy fertilizer for the tree. You have to fix your tools. You have to put it in the irrigation system. It's constantly getting ruined by the wild boar. You have to fix it. You have to go out there and drive up and spend 3 hours every other day. So it's a really serious investment financially and with your time. So the handicrafts were meant to do that. And the display in the cafe did pretty well. The cafe at that time was doing pretty well. We decided to open a tiny little website, which for the first year did okay. I would take the handicrafts in a suitcase to my mom's house in California and then leave them, and she would ship as the orders came. Because here in Palestine, the price to send one kufiyah was 150 shekels. That's like $40 to ship one kufiyah, a tiny, lightweight parcel. And also things were disappearing in the post, and it was really a hassle. So we decided that we would try to do it in a more direct way. I'm not sure if it really saves us too much money, but at least we have the security of knowing that our packages can be tracked. And, you know, we have this full-time volunteer now in my mom, which is pretty awesome. Thank you, Mom. So yeah, that's kind of my story and how we ended up getting to this point. 4 years ago, Majdi came on board, and he has a degree in sales and marketing, and we transferred the website from this little kind of blog space to Shopify, and we've really been trying to build it up ever since. We sort of don't make much money off of it. We reinvest almost all of it in trying to build what we're doing, in trying to buy more handicrafts from artisans, expand their product line, do our own original designs. That's something we're really passionate about, but we rarely have time for. So we've just been growing and trying to build it. We now support 25 different artisans, women mostly, and some of them are cooperatives, quite large cooperatives. I don't know that we have a huge impact. We don't have massive sales, but we definitely have an impact. When I called and put orders in for this Christmas season, 3 of the artisans I called were really emotional in their response, really filled with gratitude, because it's just been a hard time. I mean, COVID's been tough the world around. I know our cafe has really suffered. I think your husband's cafe has also probably really suffered. It's been small businesses that have struggled a lot. And some of these artisans, you know, their product only sells at bazaars here. So with COVID closing things down, no bazaars happening last Christmas, there's been no sales. So we've been one of the major buyers for some of these artisans this year, and especially with our Christmas orders. So we're really hoping, I mean, we've invested a ton in these artisans in the last few weeks trying to stock up for Christmas, and we're really hoping that we get the support that we need to keep buying from them and that they need to keep being able to be artisans who make these amazing crafts. I mean, the quality is really great, and we should be supporting them to do this kind of work. For a lot of women artisans, there's not the opportunity to do other work. They can't get work outside. So a Tatriz project that has them do traditional cross-stitch in their homes and bring it in, or in a safe space that their community has kind of accepted as a working space for women to do a traditional craft. That might be their only opportunity for income generation. And many of these women are the sole supporters of their families. So that makes this project and others like us who create markets for the artisans vital for their livelihoods.
I want to ask you to tell us a little bit more about La Vie Café. What is the concept of La Vie, and can you describe us what it looks like and how it's working now during the corona pandemic?
La Vie Cafe is really my husband's baby. I mean, yes, I basically run it, but I do. I guess I would close it if it were up to me. Corona has been so painful for us. We have this cafe. It's in our home. It's the building that my husband's father built. So it's 4 different apartments basically in a single building. It's from 1965, and it's precious to the family. The building is, because it's what their father left to them. It is his legacy. It was his precious building, his home, where he raised his kids. So for that reason, my husband's family actually all immigrated to the States, and he was determined to come back. And it was really the building, I think, that brought him back to feel close to his family, to his father and his mother. Their memory is in these stones. So he converted the front bottom flat into a cafe. And like I said, I walked into this place 3 weeks after it was open, 2 weeks after it was open, and I've been part of that story as well. From the beginning, as we've developed it from what was originally kind of like a bar and party place to what has become a restaurant, very committed to nutrient-dense, seasonal food, organic when possible, local always, from our rooftop organic garden when possible. It's really about a family experience, a nourishing experience for people. And we also feel that there's a story behind food that we want to focus on. We have a garden outside, which was originally a fruit orchard, I guess, for the house. And it has stone tiles out there, and there's customer seating. And it's just a really special place. For us, it's also home. We live in the back half of the building. One side of the garden is ours. A lot of our friends visit us here and are kind of between the cafe and our house. There's a pond outside with ducks and frogs. My son's friends come. He makes new friends from cafe customers' kids. It's sort of all one, our home, our restaurant. But COVID did a number on us. There was a closure and then an opening, and it would get announced at 11 p.m. the night before, and you'd end up throwing away. I mean, I can't tell you how many dozens of times I had to go into the cafe kitchen and just trash everything. And then, hey, they're going to open again tomorrow. Do you think they'll be opening for at least a week? Should I prep everything? Okay. I mean, our menu is not that simple. It's relatively small, but it's not that simple. And I'm not willing to simplify it because I'm really committed to that being the heart of the cafe. So the closures and openings just destroyed us. And it got exhausting to try to plan, and customers, you couldn't get the word out soon enough for customers to know that you were going to open. So it was just really devastating financially. And we also lost the display, which is hosted by La Vie for all of the artisans products. And those things just sat for a year and a half, basically. And foreigners left the country. And that was a huge market for the cafe, for the artisans' handicrafts, and even for having bazaars here. So it's been a really, really hard year and a half plus. Now that we're kind of open again and they don't seem to want to close the city down, we're functioning, but we're still not able to get back on our feet. We still kind of every day look at the sales and think, can we keep sustaining this? Many days we lose money. And my husband's response is always the same. What about Ahmed? Ahmed is our deaf, mute cleaning guy in the morning who's been working with us since the day the cafe opened. He's in his 40s. His health isn't great. Who's going to hire Ahmed? He's not the only person who works here who has special needs. And where do these guys go? So my husband feels that we need to keep going because we create a space that's safe for certain communities. We create the opportunity for work for certain people who would really struggle to find a job elsewhere. So we're still going, and hopefully people start coming back as well.
Majdi mentioned that you bought a piece of land on the outskirts of Ramallah to establish a botanical garden. How is that project coming along?
As long as I knew Saleh, he would drive out to the edge of Ramallah just after El Tire and look at the mountains and lament that his father never bought land, lament that he didn't buy land when it was cheaper, lament that he didn't have a patch of land somewhere where he could just plant some special trees, where he could let people come up and learn about trees. And that's how the Arboretum started. You know, we pooled our life savings. Now, I gave 100% of my savings to this project, and Saleh gave 100% of his savings. But I think the total amount was something like 3% from me and 97% from Saleh. But it was all of my money. So we pooled our money, we bought this land, and then we went and registered a nonprofit, that is the Arboretum, and we just started working and investing in ourselves. So we really tried. We put in some good years. We used to do a lot of activities. We had 2 years of actually getting funding. But as the cafe started to decline, we had to make choices about where we put our time and energy. And so we redirected ourselves trying to save our restaurant and kind of put the Arboretum on a little bit of a hold. I mean, you can't really put a hold on a nature project. We still have to go every week and water and care for the land. We have to collect water throughout the winter. We have to repair the irrigation. We have to harvest. So it's still happening and we're still going up there. But we're not running any of the programming we used to, which is really too bad because the community still reaches out and wants to go up and have this amazing space for kids to be learning and doing activities and families to engage together in learning through play. But unfortunately, that's just kind of on hold a bit while we try to save the restaurant.
When you started selling produce from the land and connecting to other artisans that were trying to sell their produce, how did you find these artisans, or did they find you?
So what we decided to do, we were not really selling produce from artisans or our own from the land, but we did sell produce from our organic rooftop garden, and we brought organic produce from other farmers in the West Bank, and we tried to create a kind of organic market once a week. And we did that for a while. We had a pretty good lifespan. But again, like, you have to constantly weigh your commitments and what things are worth. And as more projects selling organic produce started popping up in Ramallah, we thought, okay, there are places for us to source organic produce and other people can now access it. So let's let our market, our once a week market, go. We did the same thing selling wild sourdough bread. Wild sourdough bread traditionally is made with bacteria from the air. There's no khamira or yeast added in except that which occurs naturally in the air. So we have a neighbor who we actually worked with him at the very beginning to get him going on this. And then he left the country and his sister took over and she's got a pretty booming business. And we were the first place to be selling it. And again, as other places started selling her bread, we decided, okay, there's now a market. We can also buy from those places. Great. So we see ourselves sort of as like an incubator for the great ideas. And then once they're established and expand, we kind of have stepped back and put our energy into other places. So that's kind of the story of selling organic produce. But we also have wanted to sell artisan products, handicrafts, that especially those that have the story of being inspired by Palestinian culture and nature. So one example is the brass jewelry from Beit Doko, which was outside of Jerusalem in the Jerusalem district, but is now cut off from the Jerusalem governorate, I guess it's called. It's now cut off by the wall. And those women were trained by Sunbula and back in the day, and then they have developed that line as well of what kind of jewelry they create. So they take brass plates and they hand cut the brass, and then they also sand it down, and they make beautiful necklaces and earrings. And a lot of the designs are inspired by Palestine's natural heritage. By natural heritage, I mean our culture that has come out of our traditional relationship to nature, to the land. So, for example, they have earrings and necklaces that are pomegranate, snake. They have one that's the Palestinian dress, the thobe, and then the right of return key, which is a symbol of the Palestinian refugee right of return to their homes after the expulsion in 1948 and 1967 by the Zionist occupying military forces. So those jewelry designs are inspired by their Palestinian relationship to land. And that's something really important for us. So we really like to support artisans whose handicrafts have that traditional element. That's not always the case, but that's our goal. That is our preference. We initially started by reaching out to a few of the artisans, many of whose products, whose handicrafts I had bought at bazaars, especially those hosted by the amazing organization Sunbala, run by Sharabe. But then we also, as people started hearing, we also had artisans coming directly to us, or friends of artisans coming to us. And when we started hosting bazaars, artisans really came out of the woodworks. So we've met a lot of other artisans who are individual artisans and designers, or who are part of cooperatives and projects and beyond. So it's been a really fun experience meeting some of these, having them shift their packaging or their product line so that it fits our market and being able to work with them. It's been a really rewarding experience. And a lot of friendships have developed out of those relationships and a lot of really cool ideas as well.
You're about to launch a crowdfunding campaign, and actually that is one of the reasons why Stories from Palestine is doing a podcast series on the work of Handmade Palestine and the artisans. Can you say more about that and about the bazaars that you are organizing?
Yeah, so thank you to Stories from Palestine, Crystal, for agreeing to do these podcasts as part of this series on Handmade Palestine and the crowdfunding campaign that we're doing. The crowdfunding campaign is a really cool concept. So Majdi, my partner, was coming to me and saying, hey, we really need to have a budget for marketing. Hey, why don't we have a budget for marketing? And I'm like, Majdi, we don't make enough money. So what? We really have to sell more to have a budget. So let's sell more. And he's like, well, you can't sell more if you're not doing marketing. So we kind of sat on that and thought, this is really difficult. We can't keep investing all the time in this if it's not going to develop. How can we have a budget for marketing without having any money? Big problem. And so I looked at him and I was like, well, let's do a crowdfunding campaign. We've talked about it enough in the past and we need to actually do it. A crowdfunding campaign will bring a lot of new people and that is like free marketing. Let's do the crowdfunding campaign. We can invest our time in that. So we decided to do that. Then the next question is, what's the concept of the crowdfunding campaign? What are you trying to fund? Well, COVID's been devastating, and Durar, who used to work for Build Palestine, had given us a few years ago this brilliant idea of doing an online bazaar. And that just seems more pertinent than ever, considering that there have been no bazaars in Palestine in a year and a half. So these artisans have no direct access to markets anymore. So the way this is working is you go to our crowdfunding campaign, which is going to be hosted by LaunchGood, and you can find the link somewhere. We'll make sure that it's posted in somewhere around this podcast and on our Instagram. So if you follow us, our handle is Handmade Palestine. We'll direct you to the campaign. It's going to launch on October 22nd. And the launch of it is actually a physical bazaar that we're going to host in the Garden of Levi, and we're really excited, and the artisans are really excited about that. And once we launch the online campaign on that day, you will be able to go to LaunchGood and find us, and you can donate. You can donate any amount, and there's a perk. There's a thank you gift, a reward that we send to you, and some of it is a physical thing, or you can choose an amount that gives you a shout out, a thank you. There's a tree planting. You can pay for us to go plant a tree and care for it for a year. You can also donate a legacy at Jadur with a plate in somebody's name that is a stone or wooden bench that we will build up on the land on a mountain of Palestine, which is really cool. So you would donate there, whatever amount, and one of the perks that you'll get as a thank you is actually a discount code and a link directing you to the online bazaar. And you can find the online bazaar at our website. Now, what's the difference between our normal website that we have and an online bazaar that we're hosting for a month? The online bazaar, we've totally curated it. It's a brand new space that we have been working on for the last month. and it will feature the artisans. It's an opportunity for us to foreground them and for you to have direct access to the artisans we work with. It's organized by city, so you'll scroll down, and under each city, you will meet the artisans from that area and get to learn a little bit about their stories. One of the really cool things we're going to be doing through you with the podcast and also on our Instagram and Facebook page is we're going to be sharing videos where you also get to meet the artisans, and your podcast where you get to meet the artisans. So for us, this is a totally new approach. We always on our website show you the handicraft, and then we tell you who's made it. But this online bazaar is about you seeing the hands, meeting the hands who make the handicraft, meeting the individual artisans. And the artisans are also really excited about that, being able to have that kind of direct access to the customers who are supporting them and be able to say thank you. So please go shopping. Do all of your holiday shopping at our bazaar and give us a chance to keep doing what we're doing. And you get to directly support artisans and sustain livelihoods in Palestine.
And Morgan, what are the challenges that Handmade Palestine is facing?
So one of the major challenges we face is shipping costs, the reliability of shipping. I mean, we're under occupation, so that changes the way everything functions here. Sometimes we get the question from customers saying, hey, my shipping label came out of California. I thought I was buying something Palestinian. And then I send them this big email explaining to them that, yes, these are the challenges we face with shipping out of Palestine. So we actually ship in bulk everything to our volunteer in the States, and then she ships out for us because it's financially inaccessible for most people to be buying straight out of Palestine. So we're really lucky that we have that set up and that possibility to work in that way. We can't afford to invest in things like an office to work in. So, the whole point of this is to support artisans and then raise some money to plant trees and care for nature. If you're going to do that, you really can't have any overhead. So I'm a volunteer, and I work a lot on this project, especially since May this year. I feel like I'm working full-time on this as a volunteer. We have a volunteer in the States as well doing all the shipping. And like I said, you can't really afford overhead, so it's always trying to cut it down to make this project work. It's also a little challenging to work with some of the artisans. They're often inaccessible. You want to work on creating videos. Some of them don't want to be filmed, which I can respect. I don't let my kids get filmed. So it's a little bit challenging. Sometimes when they're supposed to be sending you an order, it ends up really super delayed because the parts they need are not accessible to them. I mean, living under occupation just makes everything harder.
Majdi mentioned that part of the profits are used to plant trees. Can you explain how that goes in practice? Where do you plant the trees, for example?
So we plant trees not only at Mashar Jadur, which is the arboretum on the outskirts of Ramallah, but we actually plant on the whole mountain. Actually, it's two different mountains called Ogde and Tahar al-Ogde, and we plant all of that. Some of the trees we plant are from the Ministry of Agriculture here, and they're quite cheap, like let's say $3 to $10 for a tree. Sometimes we plant seeds like almond, and sometimes we actually buy $1,000 trees that are specimens or really special species that we want to plant for educational purposes.
What is your dream or vision for Handmade Palestine and the Botanical Garden?
My vision for Handmade Palestine is to be able to do $100,000 to $200,000 in sales a year, to be able to support with so much more consistency the artisans who we already work with, to be able to order from them large enough orders to really make a meaningful impact in their lives. Not just contribute to sustaining livelihoods, but really, really give them stability. Know that they can depend on this work full-time or part-time or whatever it is, and not just every blue moon get orders. And our big goal is to expand, to bring in more artisans. We get requests all the time to be carrying other artisans, new cooperatives, pieces on our website, involved in our bazaars. And we just simply do not have the capacity. We are so small. So my dream is to see Handmade Palestine have enough support from you, customers, because hopefully that's what happens. Hopefully you're hearing these stories and you think, yes, I want to contribute. I want to support these people. So enough orders from customers that we can then pay that forward, because it's really a pretty direct line. And it's fair trade. So people are making a good living wage out of their handicrafts. So that's really my dream. It's really simple. I want to be able to sustain livelihoods and sustain more livelihoods in Palestine. We have this great, gift that I am an American citizen. And there are a lot of consequences that are negative to being an American citizen without Palestinian citizenship after 18 years in Palestine. For example, I couldn't travel back in after we traveled this year because I'm considered a tourist. So my husband and children were able to come back in, but I took 3 months to get Israeli permission. There are consequences, but there are also privileges that come with the foreign national passport, which includes being able to create a bank account in the States. And that enables our work in a different way. It really means that we should be able to support people more, and Handmade Palestine gets to do something unique. Having this website and being based in the States legally means that we can, take your payment and then process it and get it to the artisans.
Morgan, I wish you and the team of Handmade Palestine all the best. Good luck. And in next week's episodes, we can listen to some stories about the artisans and their produce. Thank you so much, Morgan.
Thank you very much, Crystal, for choosing to partner with us, covering these artisan stories and the story of Handmade Palestine. I really appreciate the storytelling that you're doing. And I hope that your audience also is excited by what we're doing. Thank you again.
For those of you who are living in Palestine, you can go and visit the bazaar on Saturday, the 23rd of October at La Vie Café in Ramallah. And if you cannot visit that bazaar in Ramallah on the 23rd of October, then keep in mind that the last weekend of November, we will also organize a bazaar with Handmade Palestine in our Singer Cafe in Beit Sahur on the 26th, 27th and 28th of November. A kind of Christmas bazaar where you can buy your Christmas presents from the Handmade Palestine artisans. You can find all the information you need to visit these bazaars or to visit the online bazaar and order your presents from there, to see different videos of artisans and to learn more about the work of Handmade Palestine and the artisans. All the links are in the show notes of this podcast episode. And as I said, in the next weeks, you can hear more about the work of the different artisans that are part of this beautiful initiative. Thank you for listening to Stories from Palestine. If you enjoy the podcast, then here are several things you can do to support the show. Tell your friends about the podcast. Share some of the social media posts on Instagram or Facebook. Start following the YouTube channel. You can also hear the podcast audio there. And soon I will start uploading videos. Sign up for the email list so that you get a reminder with a clickable link to the new podcast episode. And in the future, you will be updated about programs and trips that I will start to organize. And of course, you can donate to help me pay for hosting the podcast and the website and all the related recording costs. It's the only source of income I have at the moment, so you can imagine how much I appreciate every cup of coffee or falafel sandwich that you buy me on the Ko-fi platform. All the links that you need can be found in the show notes and on the website storiesfrompalestine.info. That's it. I hope you will tune in again next week.